Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I'm Graham Giason Matthews, and right here on WrestleRant, I break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network, and we go from SummerSlam 2015 in my last video to the Wrestling Classic 30 years earlier from 1985. The second pay-per-view that WWE ever did next to WrestleMania. Technically the first ever pay-per-view. WrestleMania was on closed-circuit television, and this pay-per-view made history in being WWE's premier pay-per-view ever. The Wrestling Classic 1985, as seen on the WWE Network. So this was one giant tournament with a WWE title match thrown in. So this review, despite having maybe 15 to 20 matches on the entire show, will be a bit briefer than usual because each match really isn't a standout match. They went by quick, literally over within minutes, so I'll give my brief thoughts on each match throughout the course of this review. So the opening round one match, Adrian Adonis versus Capital Kirchner, I believe the name was pronounced as. Match was over pretty quickly. Adrian Adonis won with a quick DDT. Nothing about the match stood out. Not really a good match. Over pretty quickly. But I will say this much. Adonis cut a promo later on in the night. And I wasn't too familiar with Adonis. I mean, I know of his work. I know of Adonis, obviously. But I hadn't seen too much of his matches. And the matches I did see from him, at later WrestleManias, were not that good just because he was kind of on the down sled, on the down spiral of his career at that point. Not that he was getting worse. To an extent he was, just because his health was kind of out of whack. He was getting fatter, he was getting bigger. His work really wasn't as good as it once was, but his promo ability was still exceptional, and he cut a great promo, I believe after this match, the round 2 match, I forgot which, but he cut a great promo here that, in my opinion, that would still stand in today's era. Like, he would still be an amazing mic worker by today's standards, in my opinion as well. So the match itself was nothing of note, but I just remember the promo that took place later on in the evening, and I just thought it was fantastic. So into the round 1 match, Dynamite Kid taking on Nikolai Volkoff. Volkoff singing his national anthem. Bell rings. Dynamite Kid hits a drop kick for the 1-2-3. Quick match. Quick and painless. Randy Savage taking on Ivan Putski up next. Pretty standard match, again, over in 3 minutes. Randy Savage gets his foot on the ropes to advance to the next round. One of Savage's first ever WWE, one of his first ever major matches. I don't think he was at WrestleMania 1. I could be incorrect. I believe his first WrestleMania was WrestleMania 2, and this was before WrestleMania 2. So he got to the finals of the tournament. Spoiler alert. Again, not really a good match, but Savage would cheat to win here, as a typical heel would, to gain heel heat going into his next match. Another round 1 match, Ricky Steamboat taking on Davey Boy Smith in a very fun match for as long as it lasted. Again, only 3 mere minutes long, unfortunately, but because of the babyface versus babyface dynamic, those type of matches did not really work well in this era, and that, not that people didn't have any incentive to cheer one guy over the other, but the standard, booking trope would to have it end in a non-finish, because it's face versus face or heel versus heel. They had to have someone get DQ'd or counted out or a non-finish. That's exactly what happened here. Davey Boy Smith got injured in storyline. Ricky Steamboat advanced. But for the match that we got before the non-finish, before Ricky Steamboat was awarded the victory, it was a very good match and easily one of the best bouts of the night. So, in our next round 1 match, the Iron Sheik taking on the Junkyard Dog. Again, not really a good match at all. It was just kind of there. The Junkyard Dog is very much over. Not very a good worker whatsoever in the ring, but he was an over character. People took to him. He was an awesome, lovable persona. He had an awesome, lovable persona. In the end, the Junkyard Dog goes over, advances to the next round. Another round 1 match, Terry Funk taking on Moondog Spot. Moondog Spot was technically, to an extent, to put it in simpler terms, he was like their version of Eugene, a mentally challenged character, but he did outsmart Terry Funk here. Terry Funk tried to get him counted out. Moondog Spot went out with him, but he ran to the ring before Terry Funk could beat the count, so Moondog advanced to the next round as opposed to Terry Funk. So that was clever, kind of a nice little twist on what otherwise would have been, a pretty forgettable match. Another round 1 match, Don Muraco taking on Tito Santana. A pretty decent match, good match while it lasted. The only real gripe I had against it, other than the fact that it lasted too short, was the fact that before Santana scored the victory, Muraco had won the match, but Santana's foot was on the rope. So then he thought he won the match, but then he rolled him up and the referee counted 1, 2, 3. Technically, the referee counted 1, 2, 3 the first time, so Muraco thought he had won the match. So it was really confusing. He never told Muraco that the decision was reversed, so the match had to be restarted. So it came off pretty wonky, but the match itself was pretty good, though. In our final round 1 matchup, Paul Orndorff taking on Bob Orton Jr. in a very, very good match. Paul Orndorff, I had zero idea, was such a hot babyface in late 1985. I don't think that feud or face turn really gets the credit it deserves. I know nothing about it. I know he faced, at the Wrestling Classic, or rather the big event in 1986, Hulk Hogan for the WWE title after going heel on him, which I'll talk about my review of the big event in my next WrestleRant video. Cheap plug for my next video. Nice hype, little hype for that. But in this matchup, though, great matchup. And like I said, it was only made better by the history these two had dating back to WrestleMania 1, where Bob Orton cost Paul Orndorff's team against Hulk Hogan alongside Roddy Piper. Hulk Hogan versus Mr. T in the main event of the initial WrestleMania. So some good history here, good wrestling. And there was a $50,000 bounty on the head of Paul Orndorff. So Bob Orton got himself DQ'd to quote-unquote collect the bounty, but that wouldn't really technically be the case just because he would hit Paul with the cast, get himself DQ'd, not advance to the next round, but he would not continue to beat him up. So it was kind of odd the way that worked. It would make sense if you continue to attack Paul Orndorff to collect the bounty. He wouldn't care about advancing just if he can collect that $50,000. That was not the case. He attacked him, got himself DQ'd, and that was it. So I don't think he collected the bounty, so that was a bit weird. But still, very, very good match, though. We move on to the quarterfinals, the Dynamite Kid versus Adrian Adonis. Again, a pretty good match. Adrian Adonis, at this point in his career, was still pretty serviceable in the ring, and Dynamite Kid was just flat-out freaking fantastic. So a really good match from these two. Dynamite Kid advances. After that, Randy Savage scores the victory in a match against Ricky Steamboat in one of their first few encounters before WrestleMania 3. So again, an early taste of what we can expect from these two heading into WrestleMania 3, only a little over 2 years later. So that was pretty crazy to think about. This was a future WrestleMania Classic match. Way too short, but still, in the time it was given, a really, really good match, as one can only expect. But great stuff there. Randy Savage advances. Junkyard Dog versus Moondog Spot. Moondog Spot, despite outsmarting Terry Funk in the opening round, could not get the better of Junkyard Dog here. Junkyard Dog would beat Moondog Spot in less than 30 seconds. There was no referee, so he made his own count. Technically, the match was official because he made the count and then he walked out and he was awarded the victory despite there being no referees. That was a bit weird, but the match was what it needed to be. Another quarterfinals match, Tito Santana versus Paul Orndorff. Again, a really, really, really good match. Paul Orndorff with another really good showing here against Tito Santana, an equally excellent worker. Tito Santana would be the one, or no, rather, neither of them would advance. It would be a double count out. So it would be the Junkyard Dog who would advance to the finals without having to beat anybody. So good stuff there. Really, really good match. Kind of a disappointing finish, but I could see why it would set up a JYD final, or him in the finals without having to advance to the semifinals. But anyway, after that, we had the WWE Championship up for grabs in a match against Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. And again, a very, very good match. In my opinion, one of Hulk Hogan's better matches from this time period. The match that was originally supposed to headline WrestleMania 1 before it was changed to that tag team match with Hogan and Mr. T against, as I said before, Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper. Why it was changed, I forgot. Maybe they thought it was more marketable with Mr. T involved. And it was a big success, obviously. But still, I thought this was a really, really good match. Could have easily headlined any WrestleMania. I'm surprised they didn't do it at WrestleMania 2. I would have rather seen that than Piper and Mr. T, but that's just me. Or the tag team match at WrestleMania 1, which wasn't really that good. It was enjoyable, but not really that good. This was a really good match. Hulk Hogan would retain the title via disqualification after Bob Orton would get involved, and Paul Orndorff made the save to continue that feud as well. So again, really, really good stuff here for considering who was involved. The semifinals of the tournament, Dynamite Kid taking on Randy Savage. Very, very good match. In my personal opinion, the best match of the night. It'd be Randy Savage once again using heel tactics to advance to the finals, which was up next. Randy Savage taking on JYD. A very disappointing match. I mean, they got the most time out of any other match on the card, maybe with the exception of the world title match. But just the finish was just so stupid. Savage got himself disqualified, so that was kind of disappointing. But JYD would be crowned the victor and the winner of the Wrestling Classic Tournament, the one and only, and the winner of a brand new car or whatever it was. So that was the Wrestling Classic 1985. And a lot like with the first few WrestleManias, I felt like the show is very historically significant. A WWE title match took place. The red-hot momentum of Paul Orndorff's babyface run was just kicking off here, going into full form. The tournament matches were not really that good. Like I said, they were very far and few between some really good matches. The WWE title match I thought was good. Dynamite Kid and Randy Savage was really good. Tito Santana and Paul Orndorff. And also Paul Orndorff versus Bob Orton were the 3 to 4 really good matches on the show. Everything else was pretty quick, short and sweet and over within a few minutes. The show clocks in at about an hour, 2 hours and 20 minutes, something along those lines, and at the full 3 hours, thankfully. But I thought it was an alright show. I enjoyed it for what it was. Not a must-see show by any means, but if you like old school wrestling, if you like 80s wrestling, if you want to see guys like Roddy Piper, Bob Orton, Paul Orndorff, especially guys like Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage, Tito, Santana before they would reach their full potential as WWE superstars, this is the show for you. The Wrestling Classic 1985 as seen on the WWE Network. So as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening per usual. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. I'll be back in my next video to talk about the big event from 1986, also as seen on the WWE Network. But until then, you guys can find me and follow me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant. On Facebook, give the page an old thumbs up at facebook.com/Graham.G.S. and right here on YouTube by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. So with all that being said, a very long-winded rant, very fast talking here today. I'm just amped up, ready to talk about all the rest of the pay-per-views I have seen on the WWE Network as this amazing summer quickly comes to an end. And as I mentioned before, check out my next WrestleRant video for my full review of the big event 1986 as seen on the network. So until then, guys, have a great week or weekend, whatever it might be. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.